How crazy is the state legislature going to get going into this session?
I am more optimistic that there will be, conservative clearly isn't the word, but it'll be moderated a little bit merely by thinking about 2024.
We have one person who knows everything that's going to happen politically in 2023. She couldn't make it, but somehow Patty Calhoun could. You know Patty from Westword, but also she's on some other TV show.
I am. Yeah. I am. As are you sometimes.
Sometimes, not enough though.
Radio. I'm not quite as slutty as you are.
You don't need the money as badly as I do. All right, what was the big story of 2022?
I have to say it was the election, Colorado, and especially across the country, but Colorado's big red wave that turned into like a receding little pink wave and a blue trickle tidal wave. It was crazy.
It was a red wave that turned into a blue wave. For the first time in Colorado history, we've got a supermajority, Democratic majority in the House. We're only one squishy Republican away from a supermajority in the Senate. I mean, it was a blue wipeout.
And we spent so much time getting ready to turn red, or to at least get kind of purple, or maybe just tinged. And it was crazy. I mean, you might have had the only success story with the tax rate cut, but it was beyond belief. And we even had some reasonable Republicans, which was the first part of that story, that the reasonable Republicans did win the primary, despite all the money the Democrats put in to try to get the, let's say, more crazy people on the ballot. You had Heidi Ganahl, who didn't run a great campaign, but she was not Ron Hanks. You had, was Ron Hanks? No, Greg Lopez, sorry. She was not Greg Lopez. You had Joe O'Dea, who would have been who was a good candidate, certainly far better than Ron Hanks would have been. And they just didn't make a dent.
You've got gorgeous boots.
Well,
much better than my boots.
Mm-hmm.
I call it the Boot Barn Rebellion. So the Republicans who are at the Boot Barn, because if you're going to have a protest, Boot Barn's the place to do it, because it's close to the GOP. They are differing with you. They said if only you had Ron Hanks and Tina Peters, then they would have won. What do you say to them?
I say you are crazy.
Why
because
are they
first
crazy?
of all, when you look at it, you've got 46% of Colorado voters are unaffiliated, right? So the odds are good. If they were on the far left side or the far right, they would have been affiliated at some point. But they're probably going to be in the middle. So they're going to go to either party who's got a reasonable candidate. I don't think they're just being shy by not wanting to be labeled. I think they really want to shop around. And I think that group, some of them did go for the Republicans in this race. Not enough. But I don't see any of them going for the Boot Barn people, despite my boots.
If you can't win in a primary that has unaffiliateds, how in the world are you going to win in a general that also has unaffiliateds? Well, you can't.
Well, then there's the theory that they'll get rid of the primary with unaffiliateds, right? So that's the new current move in the Republican Party. Maybe the Republican Party actually needs to find some real candidates and some smart strategy.
But they did have real candidates. So, I mean, talking about this, the Republicans have lost with Dan Mays types and other far right types, the Darrell Glenn types, good guys, but or at least Darrell Glenn. And this time, there wasn't an embarrassment candidate out there. There wasn't a Dan Mays out there. If you can't win with this set of Republican candidates on a year that is a year for Republicans, you can't win.
Well, you can if you start taking the long view, which is what the Democrats did 20 years ago, put in a lot of money to building up the grassroots system and getting a lot of people involved in the Democratic Party and building up the base. And that's what the Republicans don't do. They just throw money, beer at the last second. But you need the money to build the party and to build those candidates.
And to build things outside of the candidates, not around the candidates and not for the consultants. It's a different world. And also it's a different state than when you and I were kids. It is a whole different demographic.
But I still think fiscally conservative, there are a lot of people who are fiscally
Yeah, I agree.
conservative. Socially liberal, yes, absolutely. Beer, mushrooms. I'm so glad you gave me some mushrooms before I went on.
It's the only way to
because they're
calm you
legal
down.
now legal. But this
By
is
the way, your business wouldn't survive without weed and mushrooms.
yes, we're all about vice,
Yeah.
all legal vice, of course. But
Oh, wait, I want to hear that again. All legal vice?
I'm assuming, yes, I'm sure, to my knowledge, it's all legal vice in our paper. But
Ever had any prostitutes advertising in your paper?
not that I've called. We have had some of those escorts, but yeah, but very legal, I'm sure. Anyway, where was I?
Republicans.
Thank you.
We never call escorts, by the way.
Oh no,
No,
they never.
never.
Let's not even get into Ted Haggard and
That wasn't a
Mike
Republican.
Jones. Ted Haggard wasn't a
No,
Republican?
could not have been.
Oh yeah. Well, we won't get into any of those. Anyway, the problem is the Republicans aren't making a case that they're fiscally conservative and they're the way you want to go if you want to preserve that part of the state. They're just all over the place with these candidates that pop up. They haven't built a base. They haven't built their platform.
There's not the long view. And Republicans don't want to spend the money it takes to do a 20-year long haul on such a thing. It's not in the nature. It's not in their nature.
Well, you wouldn't think Democrats would be that planning out that far ahead, but they were. 20 years ago they did. And it's not like Republicans haven't thrown money at these. They've just thrown it in a not smart way.
I think also Democrats, particularly the wealthy ones, the ones who wanted something, they didn't want Democrats. They didn't wake up one day and Tim Gill said, you know what, I want a working Democrat majority. That's what I want. I'm going to put in tens and tens and tens and tens and tens of millions of dollars to get Democrats elected. No, he wanted a policy end. He wanted gay marriage. He wanted to marry his husband. That's what he wanted. And same thing with Pat Stryker and even Jared Polis. And they put this money in, and then they had to partner with people who said, you know, I want to end fossil fuels here in Colorado. And somebody had said, no, I want to unionize all these government workers, and I want to get home health care workers unionized. And then they started partnering with these folks who wanted policy outcomes. I get a feeling that a lot of Republican big donors wanted Republicans to win, but they didn't quite know exactly for what. They didn't say, this is what I want. I want this particular thing done. And so to the Democrats, the politician is an ends to a means. And I'm not certain that's the way for a lot of Republican donors.
No, and until they go there, they're not going to win.
No.
Anything.
All right, so moving forward, 2023, I think Republicans are going to be wandering in the desert for a long time. I don't think that means that the particular causes are going to wander. I also believe we're going to start seeing a third way, and I think it's going to be ugly. I think we're going to start seeing more unaffiliated candidates popping up in different places. We're going to start seeing different, reform parties and third parties, and it's going to be ugly. I think it's just going to be really crazy. Let's start off with Denver. Right now, there's like 532 guys running for mayor, and if you have public funding of elections, why not? Somebody else is paying for it.
Well, why not is we're going to run out, and we might already have run out by the time this airs, because there's only $8 million in that kitty, that public funding kitty, which is actually coming from the public. So it's coming out of our tax dollars already.
And how does that work? So there's a limited amount, and they
the way it was set up when we voted for it in 2018 in Denver.
I didn't vote for it.
You're in Boulder. You didn't vote for it. You were too busy removing straws from little children. So in Denver, we both voted for the Fair Elections Fund, which sets up, I think it's less than 1%, but it put in a certain amount of Denver taxpayer funds in a kitty. And it's $8 million over the 4-year municipal cycle. And up to $750,000 would go to each mayoral candidate if they hit certain hurdles, getting on the ballot, number one, getting donations from a certain number of individuals too. But most people are going to hit that. That's not going to be any problem. So you've got 25 candidates, 10 of them hit it. You take out the administrative costs and you don't have anything left in that $8 million for any of the other elections, which are also supposed to be covered. Then you have to go to Denver City Council and ask them to add more money to the fund. And how many of the people on Denver City Council are also running? So it's going to be
So they're
a
going to
mess.
add it because they want coverage, don't they?
Presumably, they want coverage. Some of them are already saying they are taking the fair election funds. So Kevin Flynn, very reasonable guy, he has already signed up for fair election funds and is running for re-election. Debbie Ortega, running for mayor, city council person, term limited, taking it. Everybody is really taking this. I've not heard anyone making a big stand of not taking it.
Because it's free money.
It's free money. And you can still raise other money. There just are limits on how much you can raise and how.
So who's going to win in this? This what's usually in the runoffs, and I've always seen this in Denver. There's usually like 5, 6 guys running, and you kind of get to play that three-dimensional chess. And it usually comes down to the 2 people who make it to the runoff. There's the establishment-y person, and then the reform-ish person. And so the establishment-y person is still the guy who's going to be pushing for all the TIFs and the PIFs and the tax increases and your Michael Hancocks and your Peñas and your Wellington Webbs or whoever, and then somebody who's going to, and that's what it always comes down to. I don't know what it's going to be this time.
Well, when you figure you need to, just to get in the runoff, you have to be one of the top 2 vote getters.
Right.
Otherwise, somebody has to get 50% plus of the vote. That's not going to happen. No way it's going to happen.
And matter of fact, I don't remember that ever happening.
Not in my short lifetime. No, it hasn't happened. There's always been a runoff. So I was here, our first election we covered really strongly was Peña. When he was a very dark horse candidate, he was not TIFs and PIFs.
It was only a snowstorm that got him.
Well, he still was doing pretty well. The snowstorm was what bumped McNichols out.
Right.
But Peña was still one of 2 that went into the rematch and the runoff, and he won handily, which is really interesting. And that's kind of set the wave of the new Denver. And then 20 years ago, it was Hickenlooper, who was polling at this time at 3%.
Really?
3% when he got in January.
How many were in the race back then?
There were about 7. And they were good, strong candidates. Remember Ari Zavaris, who'd been the police chief. Don Maras was there. Penn Tate ran that year. There were a lot of interesting candidates.
What year did Penn Tate not run?
Well, he's not running for mayor in 2023, but he is running for at-large city council. So you had some good candidates that year, and Hickenlooper was kind of a dark horse candidate coming up too, and beat Zavaris, who was clearly the one that the fair-haired people.
So out of the 58 people who are running, give me your top 2 who are going to make it. Because Kelly Brough is supposed, because she's the poster child for, the crony system of the business elite, the ones who do the conference centers and every tax increase, every bad tax policy that gets passed, every tax increase happens at the Denver Chamber. She's supposed to be their darling. I just don't know if she's going to make it into the last 2.
Well, if you only need 17% of the votes, say, to get in the last 2, and it could even be less depending on how viable some of the candidates seem, but 20 might seem safe. So if you could get 20% of the business people, because there's no one really more businessy than Kelly, and that's still a fair number of people who would be voting. When you think about it, she could come away with 20%, even though I don't think she'd like to present herself as the business candidate. I think she would like to present herself as a mediator who works with neighborhoods and comes up with solutions, because that's what she was doing before she was at the Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, she can do that, but she's the tax increase candidate.
Right, exactly. But now she is the Chamber of Commerce. She's branded that way. But I still think she will be in the runoff.
Really?
I think she will make it. I think she's got the clearest path. You've got Leslie Herod, who's going to kind of knock out Lisa Calderon. They're going to have some infighting that way. You've got Debbie Ortega, that's going to take some votes from Lisa Calderon. You've got Mike Johnston and Chris Hansen. So you got the 2 white guys. There are other white guys, but these are the white guys whose names are coming out more. It's really going to be tricky to figure out that second.
Interesting one for me will be Paul Pazin if he decides to run, because I think people are tired of the crime. And since this guy is no longer the chief of police and he's hacked off because I don't think he felt like he could do his job. And he's hacked off because I think he gives the message, I wasn't allowed to do my job. Let me be mayor and we'll stop the crime. I think people are hacked off enough, angry enough at the crime everywhere and the mess everywhere. That might be enough to do it.
Well, I think you make a good point because it's the person who's got a strong campaign who's going to break out of the pack. No one has a really strong message yet. He would if he took that tack and he said, it was the administration's fault. I wanted to do this. They stopped me. Here's how you can stop crime. And he comes up with a proactive plan. He could do very well. Or if, you've got to think most of these candidates have to be kicking themselves. If they'd run 4 years ago, Hancock was very vulnerable 4 years ago, as we saw by Jamie Gillis getting as far as she did. If Kelly Brough had run then, but she wouldn't have, would have split the vote, I think she would have won easily.
What's
4
so
years
weird,
ago.
all it takes when there's 58 people running is one strong thing. You have to hook onto one strong hook just to get into the runoff. And I don't know if any of them so far have that.
They haven't done it. I mean, Hickenlooper did. Remember the parking meter stuffing? Great commercial. If someone did a street, the trash removal, I don't know how it is in Boulder, but in Denver, people are panicked now about the pay-as-you-throw system, which we've already heard from the auditor. No one's prepared to handle. The city's not going to be able to do it yet. So we're going to have this disastrous trash removal thing that people are suddenly paying for. That is going to piss people off.
It seems to me. Mind you, I don't get a vote. I live
but you have a TV show.
Yeah, I live in the hellscape called Boulder. But the hellscape that is Denver is getting more disgusting, more trashy, more cluttered, more people passed out on streets, more, it's
that's only awful. In front of your office.
That's all in front of that's mostly Dave Kopel's work. But the thing of crime, just saying, vote for me, we're going to get bums off the street. That's it. I think that guy would find his way into the end.
You throw in the stolen cars, the porch pirates. You throw in all those things that are affecting people day to day. Not long term, not a big national Western build out, not the C470 park or the C70 park. You're going to give people something they will really think about daily. And they're going to be thinking about it a lot this year.
How crazy is the state legislature going to get going into this session? We have a near veto-proof legislature of socialist whack jobs. I can't imagine, since Polis couldn't stand up to them before, I can't imagine he's going to stand up to them more. And let's remember, it's 2023. We've got the gasoline tax, fee is finally coming in. The new payroll tax is finally coming in. We've got the EPA is going to start charging us to reformulate our gasoline. That's going to be 60 cents a gallon, perhaps. We've got the new Denver minimum wage is coming in. That's $17 and nearly 30 cents an hour. All these things are starting to pile on top of each other. Things are going to get expensive here real fast. I think it's going to get very, very fun very soon.
It's going to depend a lot on if the Democrats continue to take a long view. The Democrats who got the money, who are donating to campaigns, who are thinking about 2024. Polis brought in Alec Garnett as his chief of staff. That wasn't stupid. I mean, that's going to be someone who can work with the legislature. But the question is, is he going to work with the legislature? Is it going to be to push?
There. Alec Garnett is a smart guy. I mean, that is a really approachable choice for chief of staff. I mean, I know Alec. You can talk to him. He's not Leslie Herod. He ain't cray-cray.
Well, so I think we've seen he can talk to legislators. Will they talk to him the same way when he's not the speaker?
If Polis wants to be president, which of course he does, whether it's in 2 years or in 6 years, he's going to have to start taking on his own party. I think he's going to have to prove that he's not just a libertarian in national newsprint, but he's going to have to start acting like one. I just don't know if he can pull it off.
But I do think his bringing in Alec Garnett shows that he's serious
about what?
Because
all this craziness happened under Alec Garnett.
But trying to moderate the legislature somewhat.
Alec wasn't able to do it.
Well,
did he?
Who else could? Okay, so it's going to be crazy and you're going to lose a lot of things, John.
Yes, it's going to be awful. It'll be unlike anything we have ever seen. Um, unlike anything we've ever seen.
I am more optimistic that there will be, conservative clearly isn't the word, but it'll be moderated a little bit merely by thinking about 2024.
How do you mean?
That people will be thinking about being reelected. So they might reelect.
What?
All right. I could be wrong.
So the hope was that Republicans would make sizable gains, even in the House, meaning which that in committee, instead of having 2, 3, 4 vote majorities in committee, there might be 1 or 2 vote majorities, which means lobbyists could just try to pull one reasonable Democrat their way and stop a bad bill or lessen a bad bill. Now, there's no chance they can lessen a bad bill. So things are going to be landing to the governor's desk in a fury. I cannot see that it's going to slow down.
If the governor can't stop them beforehand, and maybe I'm more optimistic that he will be able to moderate things. Well, clearly I'm more optimistic than you are, which is saying something.
Well, you've been drinking more than I have.
Always.
All right. What's the top issue going to be?
The top issue of the year?
Yeah.
Well, I think politics will remain pretty high up. We'll have to see about the environment if it is dry as it was last year. If we have more natural disasters, we had fairly good fire year, for example.
And a great fire year.
Yeah, but if we have something again like the Marshall Fire, I mean, think about that. That was a year ago and came up so unexpectedly, just the devastation that we're still recovering from. So something like that comes up again, people will really be rethinking Colorado. We're going to be talking about traffic. We're going to be talking about the homeless. The homeless, I think, will be the big issue in the election.
I think the war on energy is going to keep going. I think we're going to see more building codes. We're going to see more of this forced electrification, what's been popping out. And it's so fascinating to see how Polis has been able to play both sides of this. You know, pushing a gun control legislation by calling it local control. You know, so he can say, you know, this Pontius Pilate thing and washing my hands, but all over in liberal areas, they're pushing in gun control. So there'll be a push to do more on the state level, and he'll have to deal with that because the idea is you do it on the local level, and now there'll be calls on the state level. Same thing on building codes, that we're going to have to put in new building codes that say, when you rebuild your house, no electric stove, no electric water heat, no electric house heat, or no gas. It'll all be electric. That's just going to be ridiculous. And the environmental movement is starting to crack. There are 2 different types of environmentalists. There are the ones that Xcel Energy loves because they're fanatical and they don't know how to do math. And so they love just putting up new regulations, and Xcel loves building new windmills and building new solar farms.
And billing their clients.
Yeah, triple building, quadruple building, billing their clients. But it cannot add up. It doesn't add up. There will not be enough way to do it. And then there's those environmentalists that can do math. And those guys are saying, this doesn't add up. We will not be able to afford enough windmills to power all the electric heat you want. This is ridiculously inefficient. If you're going to get there, we're going to have to build some nukes. And they don't want nuke power. And so I believe we're going to start a conversation about, do we want to bring nuclear power back to Colorado? And that's going to be the fight.
Well, that will be a truly hot conversation because the children of the nuke age are not going to be going for it in a hurry. But it's got to be a discussion topic.
And it could be one that Polis, if he leads on, he could be a national leader on, because there's no other way he is going to make his targets. You know, mind you, the targets will be there when he's gone. That's a beautiful thing about saying we're going to be carbon free well after I'm out of office. Those are beautiful, beautiful things to say.
If he proposes nuclear power, I'm bringing you a six-pack very soon.
He says he's open to it in that wonderful Polis way. Well, it depends on what the data says. Well, you can get the data to say anything you want. I think you might be bringing me a six-pack.
Okay, I'll bring you a 12-pack of this good beer featured on Yellowstone.
What is it about Yellowstone? Is it that middle-aged women are in love with Kevin Costner? I haven't seen this show.
I don't think it's that. I think mostly middle-aged women are really excited about Beth because they want to
Who's
go
Beth?
punch men and tell people to screw off in their offices.
All right, now you're the second woman now to tell me it's not about men, it's about Beth. Who's Beth?
Beth is Kevin Costner's daughter, who, as he said on a recent show, is free as a wild animal. She's free, and he's the one he envies because she does anything she wants.
She available?
I'm sure she is.
She seeing anybody right now?
She's seeing just about everybody on that show. She's
I like
seeing the
that.
guy who kills people. So,
I like her.
okay, perfect.
All right. You said there was some sort of hot cat fight?
Hot cat fight 2 weeks ago. Beth and an environmentalist. So you'd
Oh
love
my
it.
God, this is all I needed.
Mhm.
Wow,
So
why are we talking
there you
about-
go. 2023. It's going to be all Yellowstone. Everyone acting like Yellowstone. Kevin Costner is the governor of Montana.
Really?
Yeah, in the show now. I spent a lot of time in Montana, and no governor there has ever worn a black suit every day to work. But
Is it a leather black suit?
no.
Oh. All right. I'm sold.
Okay, just cat fight.
Tell
Watch
me,
the cat
tell
fight.
me where the cat fight is so I can just get to that episode.
I will check, and I will give you the exact time.
That's all I'm needing for. That's all I need.
Maybe we need a cat fight on the floor of the legislature
Oh my
or in a mayoral
Speaking
debate.
of which, so you're going to have on the JBC, you're going to have Emily Sirota and Barb Kirkmeyer, the two polar opposites. And if there's going to be a brawl going down to punches, I can't imagine two more polar opposite people on the most heated, most important committee in Colorado. That's where the fight's going to
Well,
be.
certainly the committee to watch because they've got a tough job ahead of them, and it's thankless. But we'll see.
What is it? It's 2/3 to 1/3 Democrats. Whatever they've got it all. Republicans have nothing to do at the legislature. There is nothing. There is nothing to do except grandstand and make points. There's nothing to do. They don't need to worry about anything except cracking jokes. There's nothing they can do.
But still, if you're on the JBC, you have to propose a balanced budget because that's constitutional in Colorado. So you have
Yes, but
some
if you're
hard
the
work to do.
Republicans there,
You can't.
they can't do anything.
Right.
It's the easiest job in the world. You just stand up every now and then and say, I vote no, and you smell bad. That's it.
So Barb Kirkmeyer can recover from her election. That brings back unaffiliateds and the libertarian candidates and
Yeah.
the third-party candidates, which is they can be real spoilers in elections. When you look at a close election like that one, she might have won had there not been a libertarian
I looked at the
candidate.
numbers, and out of all the seats, there were three elections where potentially you could say they were spoilers, libertarians or somebody else was a spoiler. Hers, definitely libertarian, you could say, was in the margin. The other two, maybe. In the there was an election for a state school board, and it was the Constitutional Party who was a spoiler. And you can really say, well, it's the Constitutional Party. They always pull from Republicans. There's no, well, they pull equally. No, Constitutional Party is, Republicans who are hacked off that person wasn't Republican enough. But that whole thing that libertarians were the spoilers in any other elections doesn't hold. But they certainly were in the new
eight.
eighth.
And that also shows that it is not impossible for a Republican to win. Now, that was
Right.
a far easier district than some others. And for Republicans, there were more Republicans there, but still, it's not impossible.
You think Lauren Boebert changes her tune in the next 2 years?
I don't think she's capable of changing her tune. I don't
How
think
do you-
there's anything in it for her to change her tune.
How do you almost lose in a district that you have a 9-point registration advantage and not learn some lesson?
Well, you might learn some lesson, but I wonder which lesson she'll learn. Will she think that if she'd gotten more people out to vote who support her antics, that she would have done better? I mean, I don't see how she becomes a more reasonable person. I just don't see it in her makeup.
I enjoy her quite a bit. I enjoy that she's the opposite of AOC. I think there's wonderful value there. I think
And she enjoys it.
she enjoys it, and there's a role
So
there.
why should she change?
Because she's gonna lose an election if she keeps doing that, especially as Trump becomes more and more toxic, and I don't see him becoming less toxic anyway, anyhow. And I don't know how to get the true Trumpsters to see that. As a guy who proudly voted for Trump, I don't see how to get people who are those Trumpsters to see that. I don't see how do you convince them?
And then how does she divest, even if she wanted to separate herself from her Trumpism, how does she do it? What replaces it for her? I mean, she doesn't
think it's
go
just-
Joe O'Dea.
No, you can't go Joe O'Dea, but I think you just change the presentation just a little bit. You're still, and you become more Colorado-centric rather than Trump-centric. You spend a little less time at Mar-a-Lago. It's not that hard. You don't yell things during the State of the Union, whatever it is. That's not that hard.
But if she doesn't do it, if she doesn't do those things, does she get any attention at all? People saying she's being reasonable. Well, we'll see. I just don't think that is where she'll go.
Since it's a year and a half away, just curious, who's the Republican nominee for president? I'll just put it down now.
I'll just say Ron DeSantis.
And if he is, does he win?
It's going to depend on whether or not Biden runs again or even makes it that far.
He runs again.
If he makes it that far.
If he makes it that far. If he doesn't make it that far, does Polis run?
I wouldn't be surprised if Polis ran. In those cases, he's not going to challenge Biden.
Nobody's going to challenge
He's got
Biden.
plenty of time.
Nobody's going to challenge Biden. Biden is definitely running. There's no way he's not running. Otherwise, he wouldn't be making all this stink about changing, Iowa being the first.
Yeah, get out of the cornfields.
Get out of the cornfields. DeSantis fascinates me. I think, is the only candidate that could, if he wins the nomination, could bring Trump voters with him. There is no way that Chris Christie or anybody else could bring Trump voters with them. Republicans they're in a big mess. These are scary times.
I would say we're all in a pretty big mess. These are indeed scary times. That's 2023 for you.
All right, give me one Colorado prediction by the end of the year.
Oh, Colorado prediction by the end of the year.
Do we get a new coach for the Broncos?
Oh, that's a given.
Do we get a new quarterback for the Broncos?
I would say no. New coach, same quarterback.
I agree.
Wow. We won't do that again in 2023
We won't do that.
either.
Westword goes out of business in 2023?
I'm sure that will not happen thanks to more vice being legal. No, I actually think this psilocybin, the psychedelic issue, we're looking at the medical marijuana back 12 years ago, that there is going to be a crazy boom that's going to go in such weird directions. We have no idea yet. I'm talking to 80-year-olds who are microdosing. It's going to be a strange, strange new world.
It is going to be a strange, strange new world. I believe that Westword will be bought up by the Denver Post and then go bust.
Well, I think you can buy me a six-pack if that comes true.
I also believe that the Independence Institute will be purchased by the Bell Policy Center and then go bust.
Yeah, that's pretty likely too. I thought maybe by Tim Gill's group.
I'd take it. I need the buyout. I need the retirement.
Well, I would say there's no way the Post is buying anyone. I'm glad the Post is still around, but that's a miracle.
I am saddened that the Post is no longer doing endorsements. So apparently this
Came down from on high.
Came down from anything from on high is always bad. I have never, ever agreed with the Post endorsements, but to lose another local voice in media just stinks.
And there's no question. I mean, the Post is a shadow of itself because staff is so small. They're doing a lot with very little, while Alden Global takes all the money. I've been impressed by how much Denver Gazette is doing, the commitment Phil Anschutz has to really pushing this online newspaper. We'll see how long that continues.
I think it continues. I'm impressed by the Gazette's editorial section, mostly because they run my column, which shows their taste and style. But I miss having a daily editorial from the Post and a daily editorial, which we do have from the Gazette. You know, I miss having two vibrant papers. I'm glad the Gazette is a vibrant daily editorial. I just wish the Post was there to do the same. So here's what I do every year at the Post. Black Friday, Cyber Monday, whatever it is, you can get 6 months of the Post online for $1. And so I get it. And then I mark the calendar and then I cancel it because I'm not paying $15 a month or whatever it is for it. And this year it came, and instead of the $1 for 6 months, it was 1 year for $10. Plus, you can have 4 family members on your subscription as well. So it was 5 people for a full year for $10. Now, I don't know how in the world you make any money on that. This is your world. I'm assuming it's just to show online advertising numbers, which means they're back to where they were way back at the heyday of the newspaper wars, where they're just giving it away digitally. And that can't last, can it?
Well, the assumption is you can sell ads for more money, or you sell more ads if you have more readers. And if you do it online, you don't have to pay for the cost of printing extra papers for those readers. But the question is, do advertisers care? I mean, you look, how many ads do you see online for the Denver Post? How many ads do you see for the Denver Gazette? That'll be the real issue, is how long can they continue? Because the Post clearly is not making any money on those digital subscriptions. So that's not paying the bills. Advertising is still basically it.
You make money only on advertising.
Only on advertising, although we do have a membership level, which you can happily donate. Every newspaper has a membership level now.
All right, and that comes with a free psilocybin delivery service.
Exactly. And you can
when
get
a call girl will deliver your psilocybin with the Westword.
But do nothing more.
Sadly.
Yes, nothing more.
Nothing more. Does the Post last?
I think the Post has a few more years in it, and it's going to depend. They have been wringing every bit of money they have out of it, but they still are getting money. If you look at those, I just got the free Sunday issue because I'm a digital subscriber. They said, please take the Sunday issue. There's only one reason they ask you to take that for free, which is they need to tell advertisers that they're getting this many homes. And you do still find those Sunday circulars. Those make the money. But they can only do it if they have Sunday papers.
And so for you to get it's cheaper for you to get the digital subscription when they send you the actual physical paper.
On Sunday.
On Sunday. That's kind of sad.
Well, it's a new bonus for me.
Why? Then you got a paper you got to deal with.
I can handle that. I know what to do with excess newsprint.
What's sad is I got to line my bird cage now with computer screens for the digital paper.
Well, that's good hearing that. Not Westword.
Not Westword.
Which still is free and free paper.
When did you start Westword?
77.
Why?
Didn't want to get a real job.
Yeah, I did.
Same thing.
It's amazing what we do not to work.
It's amazing how hard you work not to work. That's the real issue.
But you don't think of it as work.
Well, you do sometimes.
Sometimes. But then you see people working at Walgreens, and you go, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Good day. Let's go drink beer.
Okay.
The Zdrovia. If you enjoyed that conversation, by all means, click one of these other great programs. We have the best conversations with the most fascinating Coloradans. And subscribe to our channel. Just click down below and hit that little bell button too. You don't want to miss a single show.